Hey there, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Total Ramblings. In this episode, we are going to be looking at episode 5 of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Now, before I get into details, there will be spoilers here, quite heavy spoilers. So if you haven't seen this episode and if you don't want to be spoiled, I would suggest you go and watch it and then come back. Please come back. Okay, where are we? Yes. SM33. Oh, so actually, no, sorry. We start, I apologise, with a couple of the parents on At-Atin. We've got Wim's dad and Neil's mother, and they're having a little private conversation because they need a barrier access code, and basically they need to try and find their children, and there's no contact beyond this artificial barrier that surrounds At-Atin. So Wim's dad messes around with a coordinate, and a very suspicious droid comes up and says, basically, show me what's in your hands. Promptly, Wim's dad then gets kind of reported, but the droid is kind of shut down. There's another conversation, and I think it's KB's mum, I could be wrong, or is it Fern's mum? A lady named Farah, I've forgotten. Anyway, doesn't matter. Basically, they have a little chat, and you can see the supervisor tower in the background of the shot outside, which is a nice callback to the previous episode where we went up in the equivalent supervisor's tower on Akron. And basically, the consensus is that the supervisor is not going to be able to help them. Meanwhile, back on the ship, SM33 has been tied down, and they very tentatively reactivate him because essentially his memory up to now has been blocked with any memory of At-Atin. But Fern, using her nominal status as captain, has unlocked that memory. But of course, they're worried that he's going to kill them, so they tie him down. He reveals that the previous captain gave those orders, but he's got no intention of hurting anybody. And the previous captain was Captain Tak Renard. This means a lot to Jod, who realises the ship they're on is the Onyx Cinder. Tak Renard being a very, very famous pirate captain in back in the history of the Star Wars galaxy, essentially Tak Renard instructed SM33 to destroy the coordinates to At-Atin. And the crew mutinied, and the ship ended up crashing on the planet. But SM33 says that the coordinates will be at Captain Renard's former base, a base called Skull Ridge Mountain. And we're getting really deep into sort of Pirates of the Caribbean kind of territory here now. There's very much this kind of underlying vibe going on. And we get some nice sort of character development here as well, a bit with Wim, who's kind of, feeling the pressure a bit. He wants to go on an adventure. This is not really what he had in mind. And that kind of, but there's a funny moment when essentially they say to SM33, can you take us to the base? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And just sits up, rips all the ropes they've tied him down with without even seeming to notice that they're there. Anyway, they get to this planet where Skull Ridge Mountain is, and something very strange. They see pleasure yachts, and they're kind of accompanied by a couple of local security vehicles who reveal that this planet is named Lenupa, and it appears to be a pleasure planet. SM33, although he's a droid, seems mildly embarrassed by this and says, well, this planet has many names, Demon's Rest, Battle World, but it's currently known as Lenupa. And it's basically like I say, it's a pleasure planet, and they're taken to a spa, which is on the remains of Skull Ridge Mountain. And pools that were previously used for sort of melting enemies down in acid are now used for as sort of luxury mud baths. Children aren't allowed. So essentially, Jod introduces or sort of kind of buys his way into the spa and disguises the children as the most wise elders and talks gibberish to them because they don't understand basic, apparently. Eventually, we have another one of his names is revealed, Dash Zentin, and there's a lady named Pocket, who's a bounty hunter, who he has previously crossed. and she calls in the troops. Basically, she calls in more pirates to bring him down because obviously he's a wanted man. So they're now wanted by the security of Lanuda, and there's pirates on the way trying to kill them, and they're looking for Captain Renard's symbol, which will indicate where his base of operations was, somewhere underneath this spar. So we kind of get quite a funny moment where one of the guests, this giant tentacled creature called Cthulhu, and I wonder if that's a call out to Cthulhu or something like that. Essentially, you think at first he's going to sort of turn them in, but he's just interested in their story, and he helps them get into the sanctuary. And now we move from Pirates of the Caribbean into proper Raiders of the Lost Ark territory. I get the impression that some bits were cut here because we kind of see the team working through some traps, and then rather confusingly we immediately cut to some guards who are also going through the traps but are encountering traps we haven't seen before. So I'm wondering if, you know, we've previously seen these traps with our heroes and then these guys follow on. I mean, it's a little bit jarring, some of the editing there, but essentially we are kind of met with, you know, in this case, rather than arrows and boulders and things, it's laser traps and it's spikes in the ceiling with anti-grav and all that kind of thing. Until finally we are met with a pool, which turns out, of course, to be acid. And having found a way to get through the pool of acid, or rather to dispose of the pool of acid, we end up in Captain Renard's treasure room. There's quite a grim moment later where there's pirates banging on the door of the treasure room, and Jod arranges for the room to be filled with acid again. One can only assume, well, we know what happens to those people following them, but essentially it transpires that at Atin and perhaps the other planets are renowned for their treasure because they contained Old Republic mints. I don't mean mints as in sweeties, as in a place that makes money, which is presumably why these Old Republic credits look so pristine. And of course they're well sought after, and if there's a mint, it can literally make its own money. So eternal wealth, essentially. Jod then challenges Fern to a duel as per the pirate code. There's a funny moment where Wim tries to intervene with a lightsaber he's found, and I was sitting there thinking, wouldn't it be funny if he's got the lightsaber upside down? And behold, he had the lightsaber upside down, and the blade comes out, kind of shocks him and kind of bounces off, and now Jod has a lightsaber. And Jod, in the last couple of episodes, has shown more abilities where he's clearly able to use the Force. He might not be a Jedi, but he does appear to be a Force sensitive, and now he's got a lightsaber. And that's where this episode ends. So yet again, we've got... I am very much appreciative of the fact that this series is showing us a new planet every episode. We're not going back to Tatooine. We're not going back to other planets we've seen before. I'm not saying they're not in some of the comics. We might have had reference to them, but it's the first time we've seen them on screen, right? And I appreciate that because it's a big galaxy. It's massive. And when we go back to planets like Tatooine, Yavin, all the rest of it, it makes that galaxy a little bit smaller because it shows a lack of imagination. So I do appreciate the fact that we are going back. We're not going back to planets. We're getting new planets. And I thought this was another excellent episode where... contrary to what I said in the last kind of review, we've now got a bit of tension between Jod and the children because he wants to be captain. Obviously, he's got his own agenda, but I also suspect there's something else going on, and that maybe he's chosen or wanting to be captain for practical reasons because there's something he's got planned to help them get out of this situation. So yeah. That's episode 5 of Skeleton Crew. I've got no idea what's to follow. One can only assume they'll get back to Atin and there'll be some kind of showdown. We just don't know. But that's it for now. Recommended series. I would definitely go and watch it. I would just like to say thank you for watching this episode of Total Ramblings. Please, do the usual YouTubey stuff, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon to be notified of new content, all that kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. Please come back for more, and I will see you in the next episode of Total Ramblings, whatever that might be. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.